Welcome to this podcast, Holistic Creators, where we share our unique and universal stories about shaping the future for the 4 Ps: people, planet, purpose, and profit. My name is Swanette. I'm a mental coach and your host of this show. My intention for this show is to inspire you on your path to a holistic future. So welcome. Hello and welcome to my podcast, Holistic Creators. My name is Swanette and I'm your host. Today my guest is Leslie Urbas. She has more than 13 years of experience in nutrition, emotional eating, and neuroscience, aiding high-achieving professionals in solving the issue of what's for dinner while also ending binge and emotional eating. So Leslie, welcome to my show.
Yes, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I think for a lot of people, eating is really a topic. Like if you look into the magazines, especially the women magazines, there will always be a topic about dieting and at the end, how to make the best cake or delicious menu. And so this is always a topic. And I think you have experienced it for yourself. So let us know a little bit about your story and why this is a topic for you.
Yeah, of course. So I agree with you that I think the magazines are absolutely funny. Then one in front of the magazine, it's like, here's how to lose 10 pounds really fast. Oh, and here's a delicious cake for you too. I never really thought about that before until this, so I love it. So just a little bit about me. Like you said, I've been a dietitian for 13 plus years, but I would say my journey with nutrition, began well before that, just like the rest of us have had that experience. And my experience, I never had issues with the way that I looked or body image in grade school or any of that. It wasn't something that I really got comparison into until I went in high school. And in high school, within the first week of high school, I had a coach tell me that because I was so fat, quote unquote, I would not play the sport. Let me tell you, as people are listening, that I was not overweight. I was at a healthy weight for my height. I just wasn't skinny. I wasn't a skinny twig person, I had muscle mass to me. And after she said that, a little bit later in a class, they sat us in every class in freshman year, we sat in alphabetical order. So I sat by the same person in about 4 classes, which was abnormal because we have 6 different classes. There was 150 of us. We all rotated, but 4 of the classes, I was in with this girl. We sat next to each other. We laughed. We had a good time. We enjoyed getting to know each other. And later on that week, I just said, hey, you want to hang out this weekend? And her answer was, Leslie, I really like hanging out with you. You're a lot of fun, but you're too big to hang out with us. And within that same week, 2 people had pointed out to me, and it was never something that happened, but emotionally, when you emotionally have a response that's connected to weight, connected to food, connected to any of that, it manifests and takes on a different version in yourself. You've probably heard people that say, you get into a car accident and you almost lose your life. It changes the way you view life versus, not having the emotional connection. We all know we will die, but there's no emotional connection until that process has occurred. Okay. And that's very similar to how it happened with me. That's very similar to how it happens to me, right? So you have that emotional response with weight, connection, all of that. And so that will increase your chances of then focusing on weight, diet, workouts, things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I can absolutely understand this from my own perspective as well. So I have been very, very skinny as a child. So even when I was older, I always had like a size 0. So there was not a lot fat on me at all. But then there was a time when people told me like you are too skinny, like you don't have boobs and things like that. So the other way around, like I always felt like, okay, what can I do? At that time when I was young, we had these push-ups to look a little bit more, a little bit bigger. And even though I ate a lot and I did also a lot of sports, of course, but I never gained very much weight. And it was also, even it was the other way around, emotionally connected with me that I'm not pretty, I'm not like I should look like the girls in the magazine, like I didn't have curves. I now do have, but at that time it was really like we had this kind of model, like this is a perfect version to look like. At that time was like Claudia Schiffer, for example, and she was so beautiful, and but we had this comparison, like, no, look at them, this is how you have to look like when you are in best form, and look at you, you don't have this and this and this, or you have too much of this and this and this. So I think this is also very much triggered by how we grow up in our culture, and what is a good form for looking like.
Completely agree. Yeah. Everything comes from obviously those around you, the people that are partially portraying what beautiful is. In some cultures, they don't have anything like that. There's no pressure to look a certain way. But agreed. And that's just as much an emotional response. So for you, it could be, well, I'm just going to eat what I want to eat because I need to bulk up, or I need to have that, right? Or, we have this ideal of the girl has the curves, right? And it's like your body's supposed to do that. It's supposed to curve in. And if it doesn't, and you have more of an H-type body, or, athletic bodies, you're less beautiful to someone. And with that connection to your body, to dieting, to weight loss, to I need to gain or I need to lose, it just makes it takes over more of you. And now your responses to what you choose in food, your responses to what you choose for weight loss, your responses to what you choose in life are now more connected to that than it was just, I'm hungry, I decide I want to eat an apple, or I'm hungry, I decide I want to go out and get a steak. Now just those simple decisions have more of an emotional impact because of how you were taught about yourself and what you should look like.
I think, and also like having a different control system. Like normally the sensor is like the stomach telling you, oh, no, it's now time to eat something. I'm hungry, or I'm thirsty, or whatever. And now it becomes more like, okay, I can't eat after 6 o'clock because when I go to bed, I have to have whatever hours so that everything is digested. Or I can only have 2 meals, or I can only have meals that have only a limited number of calories, or something like that. So I think the control mechanism that is installed in our body is getting suppressed or ignored or something like that. What do you think about that?
Yeah, of course. So there's a combination of things there, right? So as you start to overtake your brain and you're telling your brain, we are obeying by these rules, right? Then we build up some guilt and shame around it when we break the rule. This is where we get into, oh, that food's good and that food's bad. And if I eat that food, it'll go straight to my butt, or whatever it may be, right? So we start to give ourselves those rules, but your body innately knows what to do, right? We have to think about it. The day we're born, we eat food. I get it. It's just milk. But your body knows I am hungry. I make a noise. I get food. I eat food. And then everything else is all subconscious layers, right? Your body knows how to break down the food. It knows what nutrients you need. It keeps the good nutrients. It expels waste. All of that is internal, right? So our bodies even know, like, I am hungry, I am thirsty, I need this food, I need that food. And they promote us to eat that, right? So if we're low on a vitamin or mineral, our internal body wants to tell us to eat that. But let's say the vitamin or mineral we need is iron. And the best way to get iron is through red meat, okay? So we choose to eat that when we're little. Then we hear red meat's bad for us. We wind up with heart disease. So we want to allow ourselves to eat it. So our body keeps saying, I want this iron, I want to eat this, but you won't give it to me. So now I need to get it from a different form, right? So we cut off our body's way of talking to us because we become so externally controlled. Well, I hear this, well, I hear this, well, I hear this. I watched my friend do intermittent fasting and she lost 50 pounds in a month, and I want to do that. So I'm going to go take this over. Meanwhile, your body is screaming, I cannot eat like this, right? And so it's giving you all the clues, like, we need to change this, I need to eat here, I need to do that, but you're tuning it out. You're silencing it because you're trying to overtake the natural system that goes on in your body. So it's kind of like twofold. You try to forcefully do something, your body's trying to do something else, and then it learns, okay, my system is wrong, do her system, but her system may not be the right system for the body to actually get the results. And then that, increases the frustration, stress, the worry, and now your weight's going up even though you thought it was going to go down. And you have all those other kind of complications there as well.
Yeah, yeah. And how did you react on that moment when you have been told 2 times that you are too fat, even though you were just muscles and in good shape? So what happened to you then?
Yeah, so I became obsessed just like anybody else would have thought. I was 15 and everything I did, I looked at calories. High school was freeing, okay, freeing because, at the cafeteria that I went to in grade school, it was here is your option to eat, okay? So you either bought the lunch of the day or you brought your lunch, right? High school wasn't the same. There was lots of options, and every day there were staples of like hamburgers, French fries, things like that. We had a bookstore you could go to and get candy. Before you didn't get those offerings in grade school. So now this world has opened up. But at that moment, I wouldn't allow myself to do those things. It was like, you can't eat candy because you're fat. You can't eat that because you're fat. So I would bring in my own lunch. I would restrict. I would do the things that, back then we thought were healthy. Like I'd eat pretzels because they were, a low calorie food. Not really, but it was basically a low fat food. I would do things like avoid eating candy, avoid social situations where I could have those types of things. When my mom was considering doing Weight Watchers or Atkins or things like that were so popular back then, I was like, yeah, let's do it. Yeah, let's do it. Diet hop, base everything on the scale, weigh myself weekly, maybe even daily. Yeah, I became consumed by the thought process of how I looked. And I was very, I'd start looking in the mirror like this doesn't look good, or this doesn't look, I don't look skinny enough, or any of that kind of thing. And, it was a detriment. So now my self-talk is bad too, right? So now it's look in the mirror and it's like, oh, you're too fat. Oh, you're ugly. Oh, you're not skinny enough yet. Oh, look at there's a roll there. Or yeah, you wear this size jeans or whatever, and that's not a normal size jeans. And it was very consuming to where, I like just the word diet could set me off, could give me some sort of, oh my gosh, I need to go try that reaction.
Yeah, so you have a long history of trying different diets and yeah, so to fix your weight, even though we know that often with having the diet and stopping it, we have this kind of yo-yo effect, and people are getting even bigger after trying to fix this. No?
Correct. Yeah. It's definitely that motion of you can't hate yourself skinny, which I tell people all the time. You can't hate yourself skinny. It'll never work. If you do the diet all the while telling yourself how much you hate yourself, even if you lose the weight, once you get there, you'll find a way to sabotage your weight back up because you didn't like yourself whether you were skinny or not. So you can't hate yourself skinny.
Yeah, wow. This is an impressive sentence. You can't hate yourself skinny. And I think this is something that is really coming up, that from once feeling comfortable or perhaps even loving your body and yourself, now there's always this emotion like yeah, hatred or anxiety to eat something, and you are in these low emotions as well. There's no happiness connected anymore to enjoying food, and but it's vice versa, isn't it?
Yeah, completely. Yeah, you're definitely staying in, shame, guilt, hate, disdain. Those are good feelings that are there, but you think you're doing it the right way, right? Because mainstream ways are here is your tactic. Follow this plan and you will succeed. And they have tons and tons of testimonials, right? Weight Watchers has millions of testimonials, and so does, intermittent fasting, and so does keto, and so does any other big brand out there has your big testimonials. But if you got through the source and to the person, they're still so confined. It's like, I gotta hit that number. I gotta hit that number. I gotta follow this. Oh no, it's 6:01. I'm sorry, I can't eat that anymore. Thank you though for the offer, right? It's like, to mainstream diets, teach you two things. One, continue to hate yourself because they're not teaching you how you need to actually retrain and allow your inner body to talk to yourself. And the second thing is they give you that more shame and guilt. If you don't meet these, this is why you're not successful. And that's really where that comes into play. You know, there are diets that ask you to weigh yourself every single day so you can learn how the food works in your body. I'm sorry, I don't need to know that if I ate too much salt, the water increases in my body and my weight goes up. That's a great way to learn, oh, I gained 3 pounds in a day. Let me hate myself more because my water weight increased, you know? So all of those things are restricting you to the point of we're losing our freedom to meet a number on a scale.
Yeah. And what I also see is that what you already said now, that even your body is, I think craving is the word, desires a lot, for example, for having red meat, because some minerals or vitamins are missing in the body. The body is sending the signal, yeah, I need this because. And now you're telling yourself, no, this is bad food. And now also the food gets a kind of a stamp like, no, this is good food and this is bad food and this is food like candies you will never have again because this is just sugar. And if you are on a diet for your lifetime, candy is out, cake is out, chocolate is out, ice cream is out, and whatever you have. So it's also a lot of reducing the variety of food that is allowed, and perhaps a lot of food that would be necessary for your body is not in this kind of little amount of variety.
Correct, very much so. Yeah, the way I explain that to people is, if anybody's watched Friends, when Phoebe gets pregnant with the triplets, she is not, right, she's a vegetarian, so she doesn't eat meat, but she goes into this, I need meat, and she's craving meat, and she's smelling meat, and she's seeing meat, and she eventually just eats meat. Why? Because iron demands in a pregnant woman very rapidly decrease or increase. And if she's increasing the needs that she has, especially with 3 babies, as they're portraying in the video, she is going to crave more iron. Her body is naturally going to send that response. And that's why she was all of a sudden in love with meat. It wasn't the smell per se. It was that your body knows that this has the source of the vitamin or mineral that you need. But we turn that off. Now, people will say, okay, but I'm craving sugar. And sugar, there's so much research that sugar is bad for me. And and what I say here is that every food can be bad for you when consumed excessively. Even research can show you that, like, when your carrot gets a little bit of white on it, if you eat too many carrots with too much white coating in an excessive amount, you can increase the carcinogens in your body, and carcinogens cause cancer. Okay. So there's like crazy things that we can figure out anything, you know, if we really overdo it. But if your body is telling you naturally, like Phoebe was getting the response, you need meat, there is a physical reason behind that. But now if you have an overriding pattern that says meat is bad for me, and then you eat it, your shame and guilt go up, and then your emotional response goes up. And then because of these high emotions, whatever will help you to move these emotions down, like I feel cruddy, like hating myself skinny, I'm now ugly, I'm now fat, I'm not even following the rules, I have all this guilt, right? You can only live here for so long until your body tries to bring you out of it. And so many people are then connecting to food, and they go to a different food to try to make them feel better. And guess what? They keep going in the circle over and over and over. And that's where your tactic will fail you, because you'll keep going through this circle of hate, kind of feeling better, more hate, more guilt, more shame, more hate, kind of feeling better. And you'll keep going round and round, and you won't understand why you're one of those people that's like, I get these massive results, and then I gain it back. I don't know why I gain it back. That's why, because you haven't figured out how to get off of that cycle and listen inwardly to what your body needs. Now, there's other ways to get iron, don't get me wrong. So if you are a vegetarian, like, you can get iron in other ways, but that's just your thought process of your body naturally knows what it needs.
Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of people that are now listening have been in this situation of being in this loop of perhaps dieting or having emotional connections to food in whatever way. And so how to get out. So what have you done so that you now say, okay, there's a kind of a way how I can break out of this circle to disconnect, for example, emotions to food, or to have a healthy lifestyle. So what have you done?
Yeah, so that's where, when I went to school to be a dietitian, and I learned the nutrition part of it. But when I entered college, and now I'm at college level, I was still not obese or anything. I might have maybe been 2 pounds in the overweight category at this point because I was a chronic dieter. I mean, I did everything I could in high school to lose weight, and it didn't matter. The weight was going up and up and up because I wasn't doing what was in alignment with my body. I remember doing Weight Watchers distinctly with my mom, Atkins. I think like a youth minister of mine was like big into like, that was like the first round of time where like protein started to get pushed. So I was like eating protein with peanut butter on top of it. Like I was eating like 500 calories in a snack, but it was working for somebody else. And I would try anything if it could potentially work for me. Okay. So compounding that factor. So I did gain a little bit of weight in high school instead of go down. And maybe I would have to really look. Maybe I was like a pound into the overweight category, maybe two. And when I left high school at that weight, that weight was the exact weight of me when I was fully pregnant with both of my kids. So my body went back to that weight. That'll tell you what I was in comparison to where I am now. I only gained about 10, 15 pounds with each kid though, so I can't really say that much. I don't know why. I just didn't gain a lot. But once I entered college and I'm sitting there, I'm like, I have to nip this in the bud. If I'm going to be a good dietitian, I have to stop this, right? I have to silence this. And I need to get myself to where I feel good and healthy with myself. So I did a lot more work than what I do with my clients, but it was a very in-depth process with myself of like, why am I craving this food? Why does this food have so much power over me? Why do I feel this way? Too much why, right? That's some of the psychology level that I do in here as well. You don't have to solve the problem. You don't have to know why you chose to eat the food. You just have to become aware that it's a food you choose with this emotion, and then end it and change it to something else, right? So with a lot of my clients, what I do is I really get into a piece that most people don't ask, right? When you go and you sign up for Weight Watchers or whatever it is that you're going to join next, or even just decide to do intermittent fasting, nobody says to you, what did you try before? Where did you see changes you liked? And where did you see changes you don't like? Because that piece right there will tell me so much about what your body really needs versus what you're trying to have happen to it, versus if we completely have lost our metabolism and we need to reclaim it. And lets me know a lot into your psyche. Are you in this hating myself skinny? Do you have this, so many clients that are parents will come to me and say, I'm watching my daughter and my son react different ways to food now. Like I see them think twice about picking up a piece of candy because they watch me do it. And that piece comes into there. So now they were unaware of everything they were doing until they've now watched their child do it. All of that is really the root of how you start to end it, right? So my big goal of any client coming to me or somebody that works through this process is end dieting, erase it, eradicate it from your life. Diet is actually just a word that's everything you eat in a day. That's what it means. But we make it mean restriction, hating ourselves, all that kind of stuff. So the big keys is that becoming aware of what it is you're doing, and then seeing where it's just shame, guilt, lower level emotions, and moving yourself to making a better decision and getting yourself out of that cycle.
Mm. So I think I have had both extremes in my life. On the one hand, being very skinny in young ages, and then I went into being a consultant, and I had my life like from the outside it looks like a jet set life, but I had my life in trains and planes and hotels and being with the clients. And so all the day I was with coffee and cookies. And then when I was out of all these meetings, I was so hungry that I really picked the next thing that was there, that was fat with high calories and really like, but my body was really like, I need food. And so I really got overweight. So I was really fat when I was traveling at that time. And so for me, it was clear at one point when I went into a burnout, and it was very clear I really have to change my lifestyle completely. So it's not only about the way I eat, but also like how I unfold my life, being always in a stress mode. So not taking time for having my breakfast and lunch and dinner, whatever. So really like having only kind of junk food all the day. And I'm not grown up like that. So my mother always cooked fresh. We had farmers around where we picked up the veggies and fruit. So this is not how I'm trained in, like from my cultural perspective or from my family perspective. But being in this kind of way of living, I totally came into this loop, and it was kind of difficult to say, okay, it's enough now, and I really have to change my lifestyle totally. It's not only like dieting or having other food or disconnecting from emotions, but it was a total lifestyle change I did. And I went to Madeira. Now I'm in paradise here, so I'm between banana trees and orange trees. So okay, but do you see that this is also the way people live, the lifestyle? Do they have, like, if they're working a lot, or do you see also connections to this?
Yeah, that's actually another piece of the puzzle that I do. So I do work with people that travel a lot, whether it's fun, for job, they're like you, they're an entrepreneur and they're traveling the world because they can while they work. Public speakers, people along those lines, that even if they try to follow something restrictive, they wind up with more failures than not. When they're at home and they're 100% on it, they're seeing the loss, they're doing everything. But the moment they hit the road, it's like they know they gained 10 to 15 pounds and then they have to do it again, right? So this cycle of completeness of going back and forth. That piece right there is something that can be eliminated when you have and understand how to travel for your body. Even if it does mean that you're choosing a cookie a couple more times, how do you do that? But the biggest key there is embracing your life how you want it. I talk to people, you got to wave the magic wand. Tell me what it is that you want. Like, what? Really think about it. I want to travel X amount of time, but I want to have this health and I want to have these pieces. Put that together to design your life instead of caving your life to a diet.
Yeah, and I think we all are in kind of high complexity at the moment with our work and with traveling and having the families together. And so I think it's more difficult than in former times when we just had to go to the farmer's market and buy things. Now also a lot of processed food you find in supermarkets. No? So in former times there were some, but now if I go here into the supermarket, still there are so many processed food where I say, no, these are toxic substances that are packed, so don't eat that. Yeah. Do you think people have awareness about ingredients of processed food?
I think it depends on the level in which they know. So it's like a combination. There actually is now an eating disorder of people that like literally will only have certain types of foods. Like it has to be 100% organic, has to be local, has to be whatever, right? They're actually so afraid to consume something that has something potentially in there. So I believe there's a fine line. You need to have the awareness and you need to choose what's best for you, what fits your lifestyle, what fits your health, right? So yes, don't get me wrong. I agree that there's a certain level of like carcinogens and things that we need to bring down. Like if we literally know that there are some dyes that are linked to people having more of like an ADD, like let's remove the dyes. Why is it only in certain countries they can use them and others you can't, right? So use the knowledge that we have that shows consistent research, right? Utilize that, right? But at the same time that you're doing that and you're paying attention to that, become aware of what you need for you, right? So if you have a long line of family history of high triglycerides, right? You have a specific thing that you can do to decrease your triglycerides versus if you're somebody else that has no family connection to this, your focus may not need to be there. Maybe you come from a long line of history of diabetes. Now our focus is on something else. So people are unaware of the ingredients that they need for themselves. I believe that a lot of people are becoming more aware of label reading and more aware of things, but they may still be consumed with the front of the box. And the front of the box does not have as much regulations as the nutrition facts panel. That's where you need to be looking and need to be understanding. And when you see an ingredient that you've never heard of, Google it and find out what the heck it is, right? Like make yourself knowledgeable as well, but note that just because, you Google it and it's like, oh my God, if you eat this, you wind up with heart disease. Your DNA, the other piece of this puzzle that puts together how to make it is your DNA, your family history, your history yourself impacts it just as much, So it's like, I'm sure you've taught this with mindset before. If you believe you will fail, you'll get the result of failure. But if you believe you will succeed, you will get the result of success. So when you have the mess up of like, I didn't plan ahead, all that's at this event is cookies and cake, I'm going to eat the cookies and cake. It's not overwhelming your guilt in your head. It's releasing. I had the cookies and cake. I move on and I make a better decision next kind of deal.
So there are some stages that you bring people through, like on the one hand, the awareness of what they are eating, also what the body is asking them for, what you also said, like what is in your DNA, so what is like, how do you say that, precondition of the family? I don't know if this is the right word, but you understand. And what is healthy food, and getting knowledge about the ingredients. So this really becomes already like, okay, there's different kind of perspectives, how to start changing, looking on my own weight and changing my behavior as well.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. And most people, like we were discussing, they'll hear gluten is a bad ingredient. But if gluten really doesn't affect them and their body processes it fine, that's not a bad ingredient. Now you're just making it that way, increasing your stress, fear, anxiety over removing something that you don't have to remove. And thus, even though you think you're helping yourself, you're now hurting yourself, because increasing the shame, guilt, anxiety, worry, all that we show has just as much of a detrimental effect in our bodies.
How are you doing this? If someone comes and tells you, okay, I always hate when I eat chocolate, I hate myself when I eat chocolate, or like you see that there are emotions connected to food and the behavior of the people, how they eat. How do you start such a process, like disconnecting the emotions from food, for example?
Yeah, so that would seem like a lengthy process, right? Let's say you've got 50 things on a list that make you feel utter disdain for yourself if you eat them, or give you guilt or shame or any of that kind of stuff, right? That could be really lengthy. If I'm like, well, we work through each food one at a time. No, that would be a lot. So the thought process is that we start with very similar, how I said, I need to know the past history. That piece right there will go ahead and tell me probably the top foods that you have shame and guilt around. And then we work through a 3 to 5 part process to disengage you from it. You actually know the real answer why a food makes you feel bad or guilt. You know the answer, but you've rooted it so far back in your brain, you don't know. So now it's just a reptilian response. I had a bad day, so thus I eat chocolate. Chocolate makes me feel better temporarily, and then I give myself massive guilt, okay? Now that I have the massive guilt, then I get myself to the gym, okay? All right? And then I, still hate myself in the gym because I'm still not getting the result, okay? And that allows you to quadruple this I hate myself skinny way that you're going about it. Now, what is that potentially rooted to? Whether it's some people, bottom lines for some people could be, I'm unworthy, so I don't get to look good. They've had some sort of trauma in the past that keeping themselves at a bigger size is a little bit better. It can be even just small things of, there was more clouds today. And on cloudy days when you grew up, you and your mom watched more TV and had chocolate, and thus just that little trigger in your brain can bring you there. And so to work through that past what went on is really my cue to then make you aware. Once you're aware, and now you understand why you're doing something, you can make a clear response, right? If we don't know why we're doing something, we're going to keep doing it, right? We don't have a clue, right? So that's the biggest thing that I do for people is I get them aware of why they're doing it, and then I get them to make a different response. Sometimes that response can be, I'm still going to eat the chocolate, but I'm just going to have one, and I'm going to do it without the shame and guilt. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's moving you to the decision that you want to make, not the decision that the dieting world is telling you to make.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so awareness is one of the very first steps. And for then, of course, if you have clarity, you can make different decisions and, of course, choose perhaps other food or reduce the amount of chocolate you're eating or something like that. So
Correct.
Yeah. And what would be the next step? Okay, so now I'm aware that every time I'm stressed out, I'm eating high calorie food, for example.
Yeah. That's a great question. So each person is a little bit different. Some people have to release that, okay, I'm stressed out and now I want to have a piece of chocolate. For somebody that doesn't potentially want to eat the chocolate at all, they don't believe chocolate has a nutritional benefit. They want it just erased from their diet and they don't want the connection. That's going to look a lot different in potentially just dismissing the action, right? You can't argue with it. People argue with it and they waste time on their willpower muscle, right? So I'm spending all this time, eat the chocolate. No, I won't. Eat the chocolate. No, I won't. Eat the chocolate. No, I won't. It's the same thing with the little kid that keeps asking the question, why? Eventually, 90% of adults are like, stop asking why. Like, the sky is just blue because the sky is blue. I don't know the answer. But why? Oh my God, here we go again, right? Okay. So you have that willpower issue there. So imagine with me if you could understand, I'm stressed out and now I eat chocolate. Giving me the result you want to take next tells me, are we going to dismiss it? Are we going to work on a type of piece of chocolate that's going to make you feel good and allow you to get into a better frame of mind? Are we going to work on just having a different outlook for the stress? What is it that's going to help you? Because not everybody, it's not a one-stop shop. For me, when I was, in college and I was doing things, 3 p.m. seemed to be I just want to eat and I want to eat everything. Not really sure why, because I was fueling myself throughout the day. So 3 p.m. became my time to just go out, take a walk, sometimes a jog, sometimes a run, get myself out in nature and transition it. So the action changed. So then my 3 p.m. habit became go get yourself outside and take a walk. Okay. Now, winter and other things in St. Louis kind of prohibited that sometimes. So sometimes it would be a walk around wherever I was. But that's where you want to get to is what is the thing that's going to help you? Some people, it could be sitting quietly and meditating. Some people could be just closing their eyes and being there. But your solution comes through the things that help you to eradicate the whole reason why you've chosen the food. So if you chose it because you're trying to keep yourself, heavier because you were, abused as a kid and you don't want to attract attention from the opposite sex or whatever, or if you're doing it because you've had this unworthiness issue your whole life and being bigger keeps you in this unworthiness pattern, it's totally different based on where you're coming from as you choose to consume the food.
So your programs are really tailor-made. It's, as you said, it's not one fit all, but really understanding what is the history of this person, what are the habits, how does she consume food. So really, getting kind of an analysis about this person first. And then, so if you have this, what is happening next? So You change the mindset, you help with choosing healthy food. So what are you doing?
All of that. Exactly that. So as I like to think about more, is this is like a health concierge service, your nutrition concierge. This is at like expert level, excelling your life, leveraging your health, and allowing you to live the way you want to live. People don't believe that's possible, right? They don't think, well, if I travel 100 days a year, or let's even go with what's equal, what's 365, let's say 150, okay? Maybe 160 days a year, okay? If I travel that many days, there's no way that I can live a certain way. So I'll sacrifice my health and wellness now as I build my business, as I travel the world, as I do this, because I can't do both. Yes, you can. It's that simple, but it has to be custom made for you. How does it work for your life? One menu, just one menu at a restaurant. Think of all those options on there. If I took 5 of my clients there right now and they said, okay, give me the top best 3 things for me, maybe a couple would overlap, but each would look individual. And that's the thing, just very similarly, like I said, when we're born, even the mother's breast milk is slightly different per mother because it's based on the baby's needs, not based on your needs, right? So that baby is able to produce it, Why is it that some kids, some mothers will be like, oh my gosh, if I don't pump at this time or whatever, like I get super engorged because their baby eats so much more milk than maybe another mother's. And that's just internal guidance. We all have that internal guidance and we still have it in our 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, but we have erased it. So if you could have that back, you would be able to travel. If you were born with that, my dharma is to go lead the world this direction. It wasn't, you get to lead the world this direction, but you sacrifice your health, you sacrifice your life, you sacrifice this. No, right? None of us were meant to do. It's not go follow this, but lose the rest of your life. It's go follow this and go live your best life. And that's where the concierge piece really comes in because you can have all of it, but we sacrifice something. And a lot of times it's health. We'll choose that because of, very similarly, like I said, we believe that we're indestructible until we learn, oh, wait, I am slightly destructible, right? So.
Yeah. So another thing I have heard over and over again is that people are not trained in how to cook. Like even though they now have an understanding, okay, this is something my body is telling me that it is longing for that, and I know this is healthy food, for example, and I have everything in the kitchen. I have like the wisdom what I could eat, but now they are there and, oh, okay, and what do I do with this food? Like this tradition of sitting together or cooking together has also in some cultures be kind of eliminated because you can buy the food kind ready to put in the microwave or into the oven. So really the understanding how to prepare food and to cook food and enjoy food, this kind of tradition is reduced, I feel. I don't know how it's in the US, but in Germany, I also see that we have a long history of preparing food and even growing food in the garden. And now it's like, we have to work so much and have less time for preparing food. So the knowledge is not giving over to the next generations. I don't know how it's in the US.
Yeah, I mean, that can be something that's pretty big, right? Because, then we're all dependent on the big people that make the food, right? So there's a combination of those things. And the thought process with that is, it could go both ways. Let's say we're, more of like an Amazon Prime culture now where we expect things to be delivered to us, within 24 hours. So for me to have to plant a seed to grow a tomato that takes like, tender love and care and a few months in the ground or whatever, I'm like, I'm out. I'll just go to the grocery store and buy a tomato, right? Okay. So when you come from that aspect completely, but I think that the thought processes as well is when people don't do something well, they don't want to do it instead of learn the skill, right? That's the difference between those that fail and those that succeed, right? The successful people allow themselves to get better at the things they're not good at and they seem to be failing at. So that's where you do it anyways. You know, like I've taught my daughter how to do some cooking things. I've even taught myself, you know, I used to, I mean, I remember my husband used to do most of the grilling at our house. And when he moved, he didn't move, but we're a military family. So he was separated from us for a while. I didn't use the grill and I missed grilled food. I was like, why don't I use it? Because I purposely didn't learn how to turn it on because I was like, if I learn how to turn it on, then I'll be the one grilling the whole time. But I realized at one point, I'm like, I'm just hurting myself. I just need to learn how to use this grill so I can grill. The first time I grilled, I had never grilled before, ever in my entire life. I was 30 something when I started grilling. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know. I just knew my husband would use Alexa and he'd be like, Alexa, set a timer for whatever. So I just started doing that. And then all of a sudden I got really good and I was really good at cooking. Like something could be like, I want my steak cooked to this. I want my chicken cooked to this. I want whatever I could do it like without thinking, right? So it's learning how to get through that. And I think that that's something that, you know, our culture and maybe even just the age as it goes, it's not something that you do. Oh, you're not good at that? Okay, well, let's go find something you're better at, right? Instead of just, okay, this takes a little bit of time, you know? You've got to master the skill. You know, nobody knew how to hit a home run on day one when they swang the ball and the bat, or when they swang the bat and hit the ball, right? You had to get better. You know, it's the repetition and the practice. And I think for nutrition and for wellness and for just cooking and having that piece there, it's ingraining that, right? It's the same way, you know, if your kid watches you do a habit, they will probably pick up that habit. But if you're just, I'm so rushed and I refuse to help myself and relieve some of this, so I'm just going to buy fast food, frozen food, etc., they will mock what you do. And yes, over time, we'll have less people that cook from scratch or do things like that because they never watched somebody else do it.
And I can remember my grandmother, she had a huge garden and she was growing, I don't know, everything. And so every time I visited her, there was season for some veggies or fruit, and she was preparing all this food for winter time. And so we had to clean it up and cook it. And so I don't know how many hours I sit on the terrace and cleaning the beans, for example. Yeah. But for me, this was also like we sat together, we were talking, and at the same time we were preparing all these veggies, for example. So for me, this has a social aspect as well. So this is also the positive thing that can be connected to food, like preparing and cooking and yeah, having this for winter time then. So the other way around is also possible. No?
Agreed. Completely agree.
Yeah, so I think it is also important that people come back to this feeling of joy and food. Like when we look into, again, sorry for the magazines, but we often hear that we can't eat food because in this actual dogma, this is not healthy. Or the food is toxic because of whatever they put on, like pesticides on it or something. So we get this imprint very early that food is not good at all. So, and I think people often generalize this or also like, yeah, I can't eat certain kind of food anymore because this is not healthy for me, even though perhaps the body asks for this. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. And that's you know, the more intuition is one of our, you know, faculties. It's our intellectual faculties, right? That is a piece. Your intuition actually knows what you need. And we weren't created to follow somebody else's roadmap. You know, we preach that in what you do and following your dharma. And, you know, we got to be thankful for people like, you know, people that paved the way, like, you know, Tesla and Google and Steve Jobs, right? People that they were like, none of us will be holding a phone in our hand. Or my sixth grade teacher that swore I'd never be able to carry a calculator around at all times and I'd need to know basic math, which is 100% false now, right? Like, yeah, I love those little memes that say that. But the thought process is that we preach to people to go do this, but when it comes to our own health and fitness and wellness, it's like, no, you know nothing. You need to go see that person, that person, that person, that person, that person, that person, pay for the top doctors, pay for this, when in all actuality, what I work with people on is actually getting back to what you need. If you follow that blueprint, you'll be just as successful, right? And then much less stressed and much less worried and all that, like, I've got 1,800 doctor's appointments, et cetera. And that's the key, is that we're working on our lives to make our lives better, but we view it as like buckets, like here's our business life and our family life and our, our health, and we don't know how to put it all together. And I think that health is one of the things, like, as I even labeled it last, people think I need to make the money and I need to take care of my family, and then my health comes as I need it. And it's backwards, because if you have your health, then you're able to perform better in your business and better in your, family life, thus having the life that you want.
Yeah. Or otherwise you have to spend all the money you gained during that time for your health later on. So yeah, this is for sure.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So if people now are curious and want to connect with you and perhaps get even more details about the way you work, how can they find you?
Yeah, of course. So I'm Leslie Urbas, so you can always go to my website, leslieUrbas.com. However, you can also, I'm sure there'll be a link in the show links, you can just directly book with me. For anybody that, books from this podcast, just mention this podcast. And I want to give you a free, 60-minute session. So, there's a bit of a questionnaire before that. So I let you know that it may take you 15 to 20 minutes to fill that out. But the more in depth you are, the moment we hit that call, we're going to be able to give you results and to get you the action that you want to see from that call. And that's really the key. I love to be on people's podcasts and just start coaching. I want you to eliminate it. The more people that can be like, I don't diet anymore, the better this world is going to get. So I'm all for it.
Wow, thank you so much for this great offer to give my audience and my listeners now 1 hour of your time for free, and give them the first start to understand more about themselves. And then, this can be a kickstart for getting healthy and having a long life as well. So thank you so much for that. It was really a pleasure for me. So thank you for being my guest. And I will put all the links in the show notes so that it is easy to reach out to you. Thank you so much.
Sounds good. Thank you.
See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening or watching my podcast, Holistic Creators. If you want to know more about how I can help and support you, have a look at my website, Spiritual-Changemaker.com. You can also join my Facebook group, Spiritual-Changemakers-Community. Stay tuned for the next episode by subscribing to this channel. And you also can check the previous episodes.